Thank you. Thank you for having me. As mentioned, this is going to be a presentation about Webtoons and how to start with Webtoons. My name is Carlos Encarnacion. A little about me, and my Webtoon is called Bra Big Rumble Academy. This is some of the art I have done. I decided to show two arts. One is an old one, and one is a new one. Why do I do that? I see many people that want to start with Webtoons, but are afraid about the art. And really, there's a lot of gamma of different art styles in Webtoon. From, I'm not gonna say bad, but not exactly the best art, to some amazing ones. And every kind of art style gets their own fans. It's mostly about the story that is important about the Webtoon. If you have a great story, great characters, then the art might not need to be the best. And so I always tell people, just start, and you hopefully get better, which I think I did if you notice the different art styles I have. Another thing, what is a Webtoon? It started in South Korea once the digital art started. And as we know, web browsers normally just scroll down to scroll the websites. And some artists decided to incorporate that to the creation of comics and art. So they did a long form comic, which is just one long page that you scroll down instead of passing pages as normal comics before. And besides this, there's allowed to add animations, some media, some audio, some music, which if you have read Webtoons, some have music, which incorporates into it and makes it better, or gives some specific atmosphere you want. And the difference between a webcomic, a comic, usually a comic is a physical form, even though you can find them now digital, but usually it was physical, and it's usually page turn. We should turn a page, and it's also 8 by 11, while in Webtoon it's just one long form. You have different styles of creating the panels. In this specific, you can create a long panel for a specific sequence, which many comics do. And again, you can create animations and create music for it. And why work on a Webtoon? Well, it's a great way to tell a story. You can find romance, action, even some learning, and a long variety of Webtoons. It's digital, so it's easily to maintain and keep a record of it instead of having many pages that you need to have a lot of space compared to digital. There's many platforms. The specific one, which is the big one, is Webtoon. Based on that, there's also Tapas, which is another one that is more community based. There's more, you can chat with more people. And I include Instagram because it's another method that many people have done to develop their comics, especially short form comics are more in Instagram that are like 4, 6 panels. You can find them there. When Webtoons, you can have 20 to 25 panels. How to start? When I started, I did a research on comics based on what I like, based on at least the comedy I was planning for, the creatures, and I did a research on popular ones to learn what they like, what people find interesting in them, and in non-popular ones. Why do you go with non-popular or comics that people consider bad? Is to learn the mistakes on what people hate about them or why people don't agree or don't read them. A tip, start small. Don't go with your big opera style story from the get-go. Think of a small story, maybe a slice of life about, I don't know, a small dog that you have, or story small. Start small and grow from there. Because if you start from think of starting from the start, it's going to be really hard. Usually the apps I suggest for this There's very variety. There's the free apps, which is GIMP, MediaBank. MediaBank is good because you can use it in tablets and in PC. In tablets being Android and iPads. Paint tools I use PC mostly, but it's a good tool. The one I use and the one I really recommend is Clip Studio Paint. Is designed specifically mostly for Webtoon or for Webtoon creation. It has a lot of tools and it's actually pretty cheap. You can usually find it for $25. There's also Procreate for the iPad, which is another really impressive tool, which is $10. And of course, the big one, which is Photoshop. But if you're starting out, I don't really suggest going for Photoshop because it's a bit more expensive and it's more difficult to use. As I mentioned, I did mention Instagram and Webtoon. I'm going to make a little slight detail about it, comparing the two. Webtoons is a long-term form, like I mentioned, and can have a variety of panels. Instagram, even though it's starting to take action for comics, and there's a lot of small comics on it, it has the limitation that it has to be a 1080 by 1080 panel, so you don't have many ways to work on panels, and it's a sliding one. You post multiple panels, and people like to read the comic, but it has some traction, and there's some popular ones with million followers and so on. So I do mention it because it's another alternative compared to Webtoons only. So how do we create a Webtoon once we want to? Once you have an idea or a story, we can start creating. Like I mentioned, always go small and maybe grow from it. I mentioned the dog idea, maybe high school idea or work related, those kind of things that you are familiar with. Don't go with something that you love. Maybe you love, I don't know, Game of Thrones, but doing those kind of epics from the get-go is going to be hard. So do more something similar to what you do or what you know. There are many processes to doing a Webtoon because you use many apps. Some people do it completely on an iPad. Others use an iPad and PC. Others use it traditionally, which is drawing in paper. You scan it and then complete it on the PC. I'm gonna suggest to find what you like. Some people like doing it traditionally because they don't get the digital drawing, so they do it in pencil and then scan it. But don't be afraid to experiment from different things. Download the free app, try it. If you have a tablet, try using a pen. Even if you don't have an Apple iPad, if you have a simple Android or a cell phone, you can buy a small pen, a disc pen, which is really small, so you can try digital art in a cheap way and easy way to experiment. Another thing on drawing, think always angles. Don't always just do the front face. Try to do it dynamic from the side. That creates motion and looks more interesting. So create a Webtoon. Once you have the idea and you want to put on paper, you need to plan out the panels. Say you have a chapter, you have a specific part of the story. You need to plan out the panels so you know when to cut on the story. Because sometimes the story is longer than the panels will get you, but know a specific point. So plan them out. Think, okay, first panel, the person enters the store. Second panel, he goes to the checkout. Third panel, he talks to the cashier. And say the fourth panel, this is a 4 style. They make a small joke. So you plan that out. But in between, you say, maybe I want to add this little panel for creating a specific idea. So you need to plan those out. Sometimes even 4 panels isn't enough, so you go for 5. But it's better to plan out the panel than to just start drawing and then find out, oh, wait, I need to create another panel in between. So always do sketches and do it that way. Again, the Webtoon format is a long one, so later I'm going to show you what I mean with a long one. We're giving you an example. But don't think comic sense that is, okay, I got an 8 by 11, so I do a panel here, 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 and here. Mostly Webtoon is a panel here, below it, and below it. It's more going down ways, than sideways. And uh, I see many people in the art community or something that try to stop people from using tools or 3D art or 3D anything. You're trying to do a comic, and comics take a long, long time. Use any tools you have, 3D sketches, 3D settings, photos, anything to help you maximize the time. Don't think, oh, because I'm doing a drawing and maybe I'm sketching the drawing, the photo from the drawing, people might think that's cheating. No, everyone does it. Professional artists do it. Professional webtoons do it. And don't be afraid to use tools. I'm going to move now to a real-time sample of the comic I mentioned using my comic. I'm going to change the page. I'm going to stop. Stop sharing a second. I'm sharing the clips. Okay, this is the application I'm using. This is the Clip Studio. This is what I mean by long form. I'm not using one page. I'm using a long format. It's like 120 by 20,000 long. I just do that long version and I work that way because I know that's how it's going to usually look in Webtoons. And yeah, I have my panels here. There's going to be a future comic that I haven't published yet, a future chapter. I sketched it out, still details, but I sketched out the idea I wanted, which is the character is flying, he's going to be evading. Here's a frontal look on him, because that's going to change the perspective of you focus on him, and then you focus that he's looking up. And that's planning. That's him falling. There's accidental kiss. And this is something that breaks out with a comedy. Someone else is falling, and no one is paying attention to him. He gets scared, and so on. And here's what I mean by tools. In Clip Studio, at least, you got tools with 3D options, which, as you can see, creates rooms, creates variety that you can use. These are free to use. These are access that they offer, and you can even, some are paid, some are free, but you can use them for your comic. And this helps in time because doing each background by hand every time, thinking the position, thinking of everything can be daunting. So it's better to use tools for specific background things that sadly people might not even notice because it's a webtoon. People scroll and read, tend to read fast, and don't tend to pay attention to a panel unless you bring the attention to the panel by making the art extraordinary. But usually they just read and keep reading. And that's what I mentioned with the art. That is not necessarily that you have the best art to tell your story. If it's a good story, if the art is coherent, then it will get an audience. If people start reading, people will start understanding the comic if they like it. And this is just a method I use. I sketch it out, then let me open a more complete one. This is a more, the same idea. I color it, I put the text in, I make the backgrounds, and so on. And that is a process that I do. Usually I use slides. There's many ideas, but the main idea is to start a comic. Yeah, just grab your application. There's free ones, so there's no cost. Even if you don't have a PC, you can just start drawing on paper. Just the idea is to start the comic. Don't be afraid about I can't draw, I can't do this, can't do that. Just start doing it, even if it's stick comics. They're they're actually famous comics that are just basic, simple stick comics. As long as the story or the jokes or whatever you're telling is good, people will like it. And okay, let's return to the presentation now. Okay, you have your first comic made. You made your first chapter. You're ready to publish. Uh, don't focus on just one site. Even though I mention Webtoon all the time, I do post in Tapas also, and I post in Instagram. This is because each place has its own kind of audience. Webtoons, I find, is more the audience is actually more female based and is very centric on romance. If you notice you will notice the biggest comics or the biggest webtoons are romance on webtoons itself. Action is it's romance, comedy, and then action. I believe those are the three criteria that are the biggest one in webtoons. And you will find that just if you go to the first page, you will notice that the comics, most of the comics they post are that, and the ones that have the most following are romance based. But if you go to Instagram, it's different. It's slice of life and comedy based that are the ones that are more popular on Instagram. As well, it's a different kind of audience. And on Tapas, which is another webtoon publishing place, is usually action. There's some romance, but the variety is bigger. And in Tapas, you can also publish novels. So you got people that read novels and people that read comics, and so you got that different audience. So try to maximize by publishing in different places. The difference is that you're gonna need to know how each site works because they're different. Instagram is faster. Once you post, you might get recognition is fast, but everyone is gonna keep posting because posts come fast. So you're gonna lose the main audience when you post after like 1 hour. Webtoons is, like I mentioned, romance based. Uh, is very the art that is mostly used is very I wouldn't say anime based because it's more Korean style kind of touch because well webtoons is their main category is Korean, so it has a mix of Korean with Japanese art style. um, Tapas has a lot of variety. I wouldn't call one specific. No, the main point, how to publish on each site. I'm going to focus on webtoons right now, on how to publish it, because that's the main one, but most of them use the same process. There's no difference between them, except Instagram, of course, but webtoons and tapas and most webtoon publishing sites are the same. So I'm going to now move to webtoons itself. Uh, One of the main problems in webtoon I find right now is that you can only publish on a PC. So if you work on a tablet or do all your art on a tablet, you will need to move it to a PC or put the tablet in the Chrome or something in PC style so you can post. That's the limitation of webtoons. But now I'm going to move to webtoons, so I'll show you the process. It's very simple. Okay, so this is a Webtoon site, like as I mentioned, Romance 101. That just gives you what I mean. Everything is kind of romance based is the main goal. Anyway, once you're in Webtoons, you create your account doing login. It will take you to this place. You can use Google, or if you have Facebook or Twitter account already, and log with them. Or if you want to separate it, you can use your email address and password. For now, I already have an account. I'm just gonna log into it. Okay. Once you create your account, you will have your name up there. You click on your name. Not click. Go to dashboard. So it will take you to this area. I already have a webcomic. That's why. If not, you will see it empty, and you will go to create series, and you will fill in the data. Select two genres. First one is your main genre, which is what your comic is based on. If it's slice of life, if it's a comedy, romance, drama. You got your second option, which is usually, your comic might be a comedy, but it has slice of life aspect, so you might pick both. Comedy is the main aspect, and slice of life is the secondary aspect of your comic. The second one is optional. If you don't want to pick it, you don't have to. Then you create a thumbnail. Thumbnails are very important in Webtoons. Every time that you're going to upload a chapter, it will ask you for one. So get accustomed to creating thumbnails based on your chapter, on your comic, or because this is the first thing people see when they browse Webtoon and say your website or your webcomic is in one of their pages and they notice it. The first thing they see is this thumbnail. So create one that is interesting looking and has some aspect of your comic. Your series title, which is the name of your comic, so select an interesting one, but easy to remember. That's why I always say interesting, easy, so people can mention it. Summary, very important. When doing a summary, I suggest you write it, have other people read it, because besides the thumbnail, this is the other part that people see first. They read this detail, if they find that interesting, then they might read the comic. So take time in the summary, it's very important. Vertical thumbnail, this is something new. It's mostly the same as a thumbnail, but a longer version, more like a cover of the comic. Anyway, once you fill all this data, you press create series. For now, I'm just going to go back because I already have a series, so I'm going to show the next process. Okay, once you have your series, it will appear like this. This is the thumbnail I mentioned, the name of the comic, and the two genres. And right now, if you want to add an episode, once you finish your chapter and ready to add it, you go to add episode. Here you upload each page or data that you have for it, and then you click. Right now I haven't put anything, so it hasn't mentioned it, but you put publish episode, or you can schedule it for later. Say scheduling is very important. If you're planning on releasing it on Friday, always pick Friday. Don't go this week I'll post it on Friday, next week I'll publish it on Monday. No. Consistency is very important in publishing in Webtoon. It creates an expectation of when you will upload, so people will be expecting it during that time. Once you get following, that is, it helps. It helps to create a consistency of when to upload. So schedule is very important. Once you finish it, you click on that, and I'm going to show you one episode when it's uploaded. This is what I mean with creating with various thumbnails. You get every a thumbnail and the name of the chapter. So creating thumbnails is very important. And once published, you will have, this is how most of the Webtoons works. It's a long chapter, going downwards, downwards. So that's the difference, And you have your actions, your options, your characters. You can, from here, you can publish it to, not publish it, to mention it to Facebook, to Twitter directly. Okay, that's the process in Webtoons. So I'm going to go back now to the presentation. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's what to publish it. Tips for when you create your account. Don't name it the same as your comic, because you might in the future create other comics or create other ideas. So don't just go, okay, my comic is Racer Forever. So don't name your own, artist name Racer Forever, because it will tie it to the same comic, and that's not the idea. Do pick an easy name to, call yourself, or that people understand it easy. Simple is better than trying to come with a complex one. This is just the process I already mentioned. To publishing, Instagram publishing. Compared to Webtoons, it can only be done on the tablet or phone. It has to be, like I mentioned earlier, 1080 by 1080. Square basically is the format that Instagram loves, and the reason it has to be by PC, by tablet or phone, is because even if you on PC you get a plugin that allows you to post to Instagram, it doesn't allow for multiple pages posting, which is why you will need to post a comic, because you got like 7 panels, so you need to publish each one as a different picture, and that's why you need a tablet or a phone. But like I mentioned, Instagram comics can become very popular, especially like I mentioned, comedy, slice of life, or comics related to work, and those comics that are related more to real life tend to get a lot of tractions on them. And again, use a scheduler with time, so I to post the same time always. So, okay, you already finished the creation of your comic. You already posted your first chapter. You're ecstatic. Now comes the after publishing, because you need to get an audience. Even if you do it for the love of your story and for publishing, because you love your working on it, in the end you want people to read it also. So have social media, post it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, mention that you post your comic, try to enter Discords where there are other creators, so you learn about them, maybe have some association, some collaborations with them that help. Always try to write a buzz on your comic. Always try to keep it in, hey, today I posted this, I created this art today. Try to always have a presentation, even if you only update once a week or twice a week the actual comic. Try to, on Facebook or social media, always be posting about it. And that creates a buzz, and people might check it out, and that's the important part. Have people start to check it out and create consistency. Well, that will be about the end for my presentation. If anyone has any questions about the process or needs more information, you can ask right about now.
All right, so I actually have a few.
Yeah.
When you said that for Webtoons, you can only publish on a PC, does that also include Mac, or does it have to be a Windows PC?
No, it includes Mac. It has to be a desktop, no, not desktop, laptop. What I meant with that is that you can't publish from a phone or a tablet, but it can be what you can, but it has to do some workaround, and it's more headache than it does. So it's usually a PC or a Mac that allows for publishing.
Okay, got it. And then for Instagram publishing, you mentioned that it can only be published via phone or tablet, but
Yes,
could I create something on a PC or Mac, transfer that on my phone, and then upload from the phone?
yes, you can. What I meant by posting is that you need to post it from the cell phone. It doesn't need to be created in the cell phone. It can be created in any application, traditionally in your PC. Then you transfer the data or the files into your tablet or phone and publish it. The reason is because there's a plugin for PC, but it only allows for publishing one picture at a time. So if you're publishing a comic, which usually has 5, 7 panels, you need to do multi-publishing, and that can only be done on phones or tablets.
Okay, got it.
And Quijano, what I
Yep.
usually do, because I put stuff on Instagram, is
Mhm.
I'll make it on my computer. I'll save it to Google Drive, and then I can post it onto Instagram from Google Drive.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that works. I've been trying to get into Instagram poetry for a while, but then I'm like, oh, I need to make this on the phone. I don't want to do that.
It's
No, no,
hard.
this is
Yeah.
believe me.
Um.
I wish they allow for PC posting because I don't know why they
Another
don't.
thing, another thing you can do, Quijano, is I use Canva a lot, and you
Uh-huh.
can make Instagram posts in there. And then I have Canva on my phone, and you can download it to your like once the project is done, like you have your post, you can download it onto your phone and then post it from there.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I'll try that as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have two more questions and a comment, so I guess I'll do the comment real quick.
Yeah.
When you said don't mention your account as your comment because you might want to rebrand or whatever in the future, that actually reminded me of a YouTuber who started with a show. He wanted to call it Super Bonnie Hop,
Uh,
and the channel started getting a bunch of subscribers, and then eventually he wanted to pivot to do more serious stuff on game studies.
mhm.
And he went like, hello, this is Super Bonnie Hub. Today we're going to talk about ludonarrative dissonance and the
Yeah.
effect of games on biology. Super fun.
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
but regarding tools, I don't think you mentioned any of the free ones that I'm familiar with. So like, what are your thoughts about like paint.net or GIMP or anything like that?
I did mention game. There's a lot of free tools. I only mentioned three that are usually used for uh, webtoon creation. Media Bank because it's on tablet and PC, and you can. Media Bank I mentioned it because you can start working on the tablet and transfer to the PC via the cloud, and so you can work on it both times without having to download stuff. GIMP is one. No, no. GIMP is more associated with alternative for Photoshop, so
Uh-huh.
it doesn't have
Sorry, give me a sec. Sorry about that.
no problem. So it doesn't have the tools I will recommend for comic creation
Uh-huh.
compared to MediaBank, which is a more traditional comic-based idea. And PaintNet is another great one too. I mentioned believe me, if you try to, well, there's no excuse to not find a free app to draw because there's a lot,
Mhm.
a plethora of styles.
All right.
The reason I mentioned the other one, which is the paid app, which is Clip, because it's $25 usually,
Mhm.
and it has a 3D element integrated into it, which means if you are a newbie or someone new that wants to make a really hard pose,
Mhm.
you can import a 3D element or a 3D character, which is already incorporated in the app, post it, and use that as a window to draw. And that's why I
Okay.
mentioned it.
All right, I dig that. That sounds good.
Yeah.
And then the last one, I saw like quite a bit of an improvement from the earlier work that you posted and the later chapters.
Yes.
So are there any tips that you have for aspiring artists on how to get better?
Uh, I would suggest to do fan art, and by doing fan art, I mean is look at someone's art and try not don't try to copy the art, but try to make the drawing. Fan art is very, many artists start by doing fan comics and move to their own projects, and that's because they start to learn anatomy and start to understand how to make the characters.
Okay.
If you do a chibi style comic, look for other chibi style comics to find out what is the how most chibi are created. If you're doing a realistic comic, look for that. Always look for inspiration from other great artists and practice. Because keep drawing once a day, twice a day. Um, like you mentioned, this is the poster I created the most recently, and I'm gonna show you one really really early art from me, because to so people notice the difference of
Yeah.
this is really bad. Oh God. But I'm gonna show it so people understand the.
You're trying to find one that's like not
Oh,
that bad, huh?
that's how I started.
Oh my god, I love this.
That's how I started. That was during the initial D frame. Everyone was loving, so I did that. That's bad.
Yeah.
The pants don't usually go that way, And then I'm gonna show you one recently, which is the Kingdom Hearts one. Let me show you. Okay. From practicing and learning and doing fan, I move into see that is
Oh
this
wow.
is-
Damn, dude. This,
so
More
that's just
colors
from
and textures and dimensions.
and that's from practicing. You practice, practice, practice. This is from watching the game, understanding it, and that's how you practice. That's why I mentioned practicing other creations, other art, so you know the details they use, and you can incorporate them back into your own art. So yeah, practice.
awesome.
That's how you gotta do practice.
Awesome. Thanks.
No problem. No. If you got any other questions,
No, but this was a really good presentation. I think like you kind of touched on a theme that we've seen throughout the presentations this week, which is just do it.
yeah,
Just start
yeah,
it. You will get better.
yes.
Just put it out there, and yeah, that's pretty much all you have to do.
No, as always, just start on the project, any project. It doesn't have to be art. If you're writing, just start writing, start reading, start studying. It's not just about creating. You gotta see other people work, see other people's creation, get inspired. But the important thing is just to start. It doesn't really matter. Um, I mean, if you really want an example of something that can become very popular, even if the art is bad, One Punch Man. I mean, the
Yeah, the first
the
ones were terrible.
original
Truer
comic
words.
is wow. The art is just I don't know what to say, but it became a worldwide sensation. They made it into a better art. They made an anime. That's what I mean. If the story is good, people might like it, and that's the important thing. Have a good story, good comedy, good aspect, and the art becomes secondary.
Yeah, and in writing an equivalent would be, I guess, 50 Shades of Grey, which isn't stellar, but actually started like really, really, really bad Twilight fanfic.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And then so that reminds me, so it's like 50 Shades of Grey was a bad Twilight fanfic. And then like, what was it? What's that one? It's like a Wattpad fanfic of like One Direction. We
What?
collided. There's a book called
No.
like When We Collided, and
Okay.
it's now like a series of Netflix films.
Oh goodness.
You know, so yes,
Yeah,
When We
just start
Collided.
getting out there, get a following.
Yeah,
Exactly. I think it's
it's
like,
wild.
yeah.
I forgot the movie that started Matt Damon on Mars. That was a website novel. You know, the person started writing as a novel, became popular, and well, turned out a movie in the end.
You mean the Mars Potato Farmer one?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Really? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yes, it was a website. It was a web novel.
It was
It
very
started as a web novel. The person started posting at the novel, and well, I don't know, became a worldwide sensation.
Okay.
exactly. And basically, you know what's going to happen if you do nothing, essentially. Like,
Exactly.
but you don't know what's going to happen when you start creating content, when you start sharing it.
Yeah.
Really good things can happen, really bad things can happen, but it's kind of like a 50-50. You just
Exactly.
have to find your audience.
Those
Another aspect is
100% of shoots, I never take.
the Laura Olympus you mentioned. I remember that she gave an interview, and her teacher, her art teacher, said that her art and comic will never go far. And you can get those kind of negatives even from professional people. And the last thing she did, she posted a banner they put on Times Square of her comic. Where you follow also. That's what I meant. So yeah.
Doing stuff out of spite.
Yeah. Hey,
Exactly.
That's
well,
awesome.
that's what I meant. And then some comics have the art is good, the story is good, so some people might not understand it, but you might get a big audience from somewhere else, and that's the point. It's
Awesome.
to start and see if it works.
All right. Well, thanks for the conversation, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a really cool way to end. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys around. Thank you so much.